We're going to get started with Ashwini.
Okay, here are the questions which I asked Dr. Okay, so.
I'll take 3. I'll take multiple copies, it's fine.
I want you to have lots.
Okay, so I found this interesting quote by Peter Singer. He says, more often there's a compromise between ethics and expediency. No, that doesn't mean I totally endorse to be unethical or anything, but just I always feel there's a thin line between being ethical and unethical, like, especially in a clinical setting. And I spoke to Dr. Parham, my advisor, whom I totally adore and respect. And I think he is so much involved in so many research projects, which I don't even know exactly, but still I know that he is involved in many research projects. And yeah, I talked to him about being ethical and unethical. So I'm going to talk about what it is exactly, or what it doesn't take, or how does he make decisions. I hope everybody got a chance to read the article, the newspaper article, or if not, I can just go through it like in short. It was nothing but a story of Siamese twins, conjoined twins. They were joined at the brain, and they shared one common vein. They were Iranian twins. They were famous, and they were 29 years old. When they were 2 years old, their father took them to Germany, and many doctors refused the surgery because they knew the risks. So these girls, they wanted to lead different lives, so they went to Singapore. They founded a hospital, and the surgeons over there decided to conduct a surgery. It raised an ethical issue even after the doctors had received an assent, and they had received an assent from the girls. It raised an ethical issue because there were many, the Singapore hospital had conducted a surgery before, but it was on infants, and they did tell the girls that there's a risk, only 50% risk of one surviving, but both of them died. And the doctors involved in that team, they wanted to be a part of that surgery or whatever, to be on the map, to be on the global map. That was also for their own name and fame, and also for the hospital. So that's the whole article about. So what were your reactions to the article? Would you be part of the medical team when you know the risks? Anybody?
Actually, I think I was surprised, again, from my recollection, there were like over 100 people involved in this surgery.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a small team. I mean, I know with infants, I've heard like 30 team, but there was 100, I think, from my recollection. And it was just, I was just amazed by the number. That and they had a consultant from the US.
Yes.
Who also said, that it was fine. And it was just, again, interesting that the Germans, so the ethical issue of the team, but it seemed to me too that the twins would have gone all over the world to find somebody who would do the procedure. So that was where I was really stuck. It's like, if not the Singapore team, it would have been some other team, because they were really searching and looking for somebody who would say yes to their, to their desire to be separated. So it was interesting that a whole slew of people, 100 or so in the surgical team, would agree to do this. So obviously there was consensus with all those people to say, yeah, let's do it. And it was beyond just the hospital. Like I said, they had the consultants from the US and other people to say, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So would you be part of that team?
I would, because the team was so large, I probably would have said, you know what, there's enough people. I mean, it was just stupendous.
That's true.
Over, like 100, it's just like, that's a lot.
Okay.
So I would have just said, okay, you've already talked to expert so-and-so, so that's how you feel. But I was more concerned, like I said, about the twins who were really searching for a team who was going to do it no matter what.
Okay. I asked the same question. I told Dr. Param about this, about the entire story, and I asked him what he would do or would he be part. He told me that if everybody is on board and like if there is less gray area, he would be part of the team. Like if there are already medical complications which require surgery or which require therapy or any sort of treatment, he would be part of the team. So that's what he had to say. Knowing all his research, like is part of the research projects, I asked him like, how does he decide this is a particular field, or how does he know that this needs a research, or he wants to do research on this, or a particular whatever project it is. He told me that it's always, since his area of dissertation, it's always been his interest. So he's done research out of his interest. So there's nothing else. And also he told that many people have asked to join their research projects, and thus he's been involved in many research projects. Like he has his own, and also he's been part of the many research projects. We did talk a lot about using human and animal subjects for research in the class. So I asked him if he's ever worked with any animal subjects or if it's always been humans. He told that he would love to work with animals, but he doesn't have time. He told that it is a very time-consuming process, which I wasn't aware of. I thought it's very easy, but no, it's time-consuming. He has always worked with human subjects. And all the research he's done, everything is IRB approved. We studied a lot in the evidence-based practice class regarding IRB, so I asked him if he has always received a positive answer from IRB. So he told that he is never specific. He includes a broad category while writing to the IRB. Like for an example, he wants voice samples of 9 and 10-year-old kids. He would write it from 8 to 10-year-old. He would be as broad as possible just to receive the approval. And he has always received an approval from the IRB. He has always received a positive reply. I know he's always been ethical, but still I went ahead and I asked him, is like, has he always been ethical? And when he answered me, I laughed. And I asked him if I would quote his answer as he said. And he said, yeah. I asked him if I could say it to the class. He said, yeah, sure, go ahead, no issues. He told me, I'm too afraid to be caught. And I was like, okay. For a moment, I was like, afraid? You are a professor. You work, and he said, no, I'm too afraid to be caught. I would never do anything which is unethical. And I was more, it's like, I didn't ask him anything, but he went on and he told me that I don't want to lose my job. I love my job. I love the work I do. And that's the reason he would never be unethical. I asked him if he would cross the line, and he would take any unethical decision. He told me that over here, he's not under pressure. He does not have to come up with specific results. He gave me an example of pharmaceutical companies. He believes, or maybe it's true, that researchers who are paid and who work for pharmaceutical companies, they have to come up with specific results because they want to sell their products. Over here, he's not under any pressure to make any unethical decisions. He also told me, which is a great lesson, he told he would rather come up with bad methods and bad statistical tests than manipulating the data, than coming up with something which is not true, like just forging the results. He would never do that. And this is a great lesson, I thought. It's okay, and he also told me that he would rather be transparent, like if he does anything with his methods or his statistics, he would rather be transparent, just saying, okay, this is what I've done. It's not manipulating. He would rather be transparent and just put up there that, okay, this is it is. I have done this. So public knows that what he has done. When I asked him more about being unethical, he told me that when people look for him, he would rather want people to say, oh, this is what he did. And he doesn't want somebody else to wonder, really, what did he do? And he also told that when one person is involved in any unethical or anything, in any unethical decision, the people who work with that person also get pulled out. He gave me a few examples of like if he's involved, the other 4 co-authors would also be pulled out. And that's the reason he would never take any unethical decision. I asked him if he has ever faced any ethical dilemmas in a clinical or a research setting. He said in a clinical setting, yes, he has faced, and I guess as clinicians we do feel. I haven't faced yet, but of course, being a dentist, I faced it many times. Like he gave an example of if he wants to change somebody's diet and the person is not willing. So what do you do? And I asked him, what does he do? If the person is not willing, all he did was just write it down and just say that the person is not willing to change the diet and just leave it, because he couldn't do anything. He knows he has to help the client, but he can't help. And when I asked him about research, he works with babies a lot. So he records their voice samples. So in the research setting, he told that when babies are seated in high chairs, they start crying. And when they start crying, their mothers want to pick them up or calm them. And he wants the data, or he wants the voice sample when they are crying. So the ethical dilemma which he faces is like he can't make the baby cry. So, but he wants the data. He wants the child to be in that high chair. He said, this is the dilemma. Sometimes I can't make them, you can't make a baby cry. He would never do that, but he wants the voice sample when they start crying. So this is the max ethical dilemma he's ever faced. He talks about his kids, or like there are so many researchers who have first experimented on kids, like, or even their own, it's either the family members or either their own pet animals or anything. The famous researchers, one of them is Charles Best, who first tested on pancreas. He was the insulin founder, and he experimented on his own dog. So I asked him if he would ever experiment on his family members, on his kids, or if he has ever experimented on his kids. He has. He brings his kids and his kids' friends to the lab. So he has done it very often. And then I didn't know, but he told me that it is IRB approved too. So I asked him if it is just like you tell the IRB that this is my kid, or what. He says that when it is a bunch of subjects, like a bunch of data which he has, they are just included in that. So he has very often worked on his family members or on his kids. In this class or over this semester, we talked about Andrew Wakefield. I mean to say once or twice. He was unethical, we know that, and he damaged the society to some extent, or whosoever believes that he damaged the society. Or the other example which Dr. Soffel told us was Henrietta Lacks, the HeLa immortal cell line, the cancer example which has still been going on and everything. So the doctor who did that was Dr. George Otto G, and he was unethical, but he was productive. So when you are put into a situation of being unethical, but you know you're going to help someone or save somebody's life, would you be unethical?
I think if they were gonna die like right there without me doing something that's unethical, then I probably would have. But if I could figure out in that time of something else I could do, I probably wouldn't. But if it's like a life or death situation, like they're either gonna die or I have to do something to them, then I probably would do the unethical thing to save their life.
To save the life. Anybody else?
Too hard.
Too late, they're dead.
You have something in your mind.
Well, I was just thinking that I know when I was preparing my presentation, I was going through Shamu, and I was reading a lot about how he was saying that like was comparing ethics to science, I guess, and he was saying how like science is like so clear and like ethics is like it's always like we're not sure, we're going in circles and stuff like that, and like in science we're making a lot of progress, and like in ethics we haven't really, and so so my response would be like maybe I would do something unethical to save a person's life because there's so much disagreement about what's ethical, you know?
Yeah.
Like maybe what I did was unethical, like for, you know, that like at that time people thought it was unethical, but like later on they're like, oh yeah, he did the right thing, that was ethical. So, you know, like, yeah, I don't know, it's not super black and white.
Is it a dilemma between morals and ethics? Because your text talks about that there are morals and there are
Yeah.
ethics. So when you're talking about maybe a situation, would you have a moral obligation to, like, save a life? Even though you're not a physician, you might attempt to save that life, which could be considered unethical because you don't have the proper license.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's when your morals would kick in. And that's, I think, when my morals would kick in, even if, like, I wasn't, you know, educated on that topic, but I saw something happen, or at least I could help try to save the person or something. If I didn't do that, I would feel like morally, whatever, bankrupt or something, that, like, I didn't do what I should have done, even though it's not ethical. That guilt would probably get me.
Be interesting to know if it was in a situation like that where it's life or death, how much of your instinct kicks in versus your brain kicking in. Because I think you would just automatically just go try to save someone or go try to help without necessarily thinking through what could be the repercussions, what am I liable for if something goes wrong.
I asked him the same thing I told about these two people, or of course he knows that, but when I asked him, he told me that if he's going to save life, he would be unethical. Like, as everybody said, that he would cross a line. But in research, he doesn't prefer to do anything against his ethics. But he told me that if an adult comes to him and he says, experiment on me, like if somebody approaches and wills to be experimented on him, and if the procedure is not invasive, he would do that. Then that like just to begin with no IRB or anything, but the adult is willing to be experimented, it would just be that. So this is all. So all that I learned from after talking to him about ethics was to be as ethical as possible in every which way. Any questions?
Did you say that the twins died?
Yeah, they died. They died. One of them died on the table, like while the surgery was going on. They actually shared a vein, and which was connected to the heart, everything. And so they were going to try. They knew this. The doctors knew it, and they were going to retain the same vein, while for the other one, they were going to transfer a vein from the thigh. So, but that did not happen. They both died on the table. Like one died on the table, while the other died within few hours before even closing up.
Ashwini, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
I know you're in the process of figuring out where in this field you're destined to go eventually. But was there anything in your discussion with Dr. Parham that connected with something you see yourself doing in the future somehow?
The acoustics, field of acoustics, like more it would be with respiration, and I'm more interested with cleft lip and cleft palate glands or something like that, and with the speech. So we are still working on that. But with this discussion, it wasn't much of that. It was more about, I just talked about his research procedures or what does he do. So
So has he never pinched a baby to make him cry?
No. Yeah, he said me, I asked him, he told me that I can't make babies cry, but when they cry, I want them to cry. And I want that voice sample, or I want that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.